Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for having the patience to stay with us. We're starting our panel, and I'll remind you about the title, Navigating Volatility, the Kurdistan Region as a Resilient Partner for International Capital. For those who do not know me, I'm Peshawar Mohammed. I think you know me, right? I serve as an advisor to His Excellency Deputy Prime Minister Kubat Talabani, and I'm privileged that I chair this interesting panel today. I'm joined by three distinguished representatives of the major allies of the Kurdistan region. Mr. Andrew Bisley, the Consul General of the United Kingdom. Dr. Jan Brahim, Consul General of the Republic of France in the Kurdistan region, and Radu Butum, Head of EU Liaison Office in Erbil. We've got only 20 minutes, so I try to be punctual. It's not one of my strengths, but I'll do my best. So Andrew, perhaps I'll start with you. If we look at the title of the panel, we're saying navigating volatility. Not overcoming, not preventing, not eliminating. So this means that the region, perhaps the world, will stay volatile for some time, if not forever. So one of the things perhaps to cope with this volatility is trying to strengthen our partnerships with the international community. And we're proud to say one of the countries is the UK. And one of the good recent example of that partnership is the recent launch of the Regional Development Agency in Raparin. So I would like you to tell us a bit more about this agency and its significance for the UK, for the Kurdistan region, and for this volatile region. Please.
Thank you, Dr. Peshawar. I should probably start by not claiming too much of the intellectual property behind this, which really is His Excellency the Deputy Prime Minister and his teams. But ultimately, what's the problem that we're trying to deal with? On the last panel, it was mentioned how when you go to Erbil, when you go to Suli, you can feel like you're sometimes in a European or a Gulf city in terms of the levels of development. But that's quite partial. And there are areas across the Kurdistan region which are less developed, less economically developed at least. And that causes problem for the region, for its government. It also ends up causing problems politically and in security terms for countries like mine, ultimately. Because if you look at Raparin, for instance, it's a story of agricultural decline. It's a story of not too much industrial development, not too much business that's happening there. And frankly, people have started to vote with their feet. And those feet have taken them on some quite dangerous journeys, sometimes to the UK. So that's quite a negative thing to say. But I think one of the things that's quite interesting about the structure of the Kurdistan region is independent administrations. When you look around at each of them show in different ways, perhaps excluding Raparin, a chance to navigate that volatility and a way forward. If you look at Zakho is probably the best example. Zakho has central government funding. Zakho has the benefits of the border. Soran has a central government and local strategy and kind of tourism money coming in. And certainly it's been possible in parts of Garmian to get private financing, ultimately. So what we've tried to do together with the government is rather than look at a sort of traditional response that my country might do, which is, okay, let's do some youth skill, let's do some training, is actually to try and look at something that tackles the problem in a far more holistic way, ultimately. Brings in some of those elements that you can see in the other independent administrations, brings in best practice. So what we have been able to do in partnership with the Foundation, in partnership with the Prime Minister's Office, Deputy Prime Minister's Office, is essentially try and create an agency that looks at this problem holistically, that tries to create a strategy that has in place an architecture that allows it in the future to work with the central government, with the local government, with businesses, that's set up in a way to attract international finance from my country, from other countries. I know that certainly the EU suffers from a lot of the problems that we have, and I would hope that it would be something that the EU would consider putting money into as well in future. It's just the beginning, ultimately. We're happy to have established things, but it's an exciting moment. It's an exciting moment because of the possibilities that this thing creates. Certainly, I'm quite happy with the reception that it's got across the political spectrum in the Kurdistan region, and it's not often that you can say that. What we hope is that it can be a model. It can be a model that's applied elsewhere, but ultimately we have to make this thing work.
Oh, thank you. Radu, agreeing that the world may stay volatile for some time, if not forever, I think being resilient is not enough. We have to do more, we have to prosper, we have to develop, we have to work better and closer with our international friends. So given the volatility that we've seen at the moment, what do you think we should do together as EU and Kurdistan region and Iraq more broadly to tackle this volatility?
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Peshawar, and thank you for organizing. It's a great opportunity to be here again, the second time. Thank you for the question, a very good one. I think we've heard a lot today, and we will hear still about volatility, and I think it's important to break down a bit the concept. I mean, of course, it means rapid change, and to a certain extent, changes that are not within our own reach, changes that go beyond us. And lack of predictability for that matter. But I think the essence here is to understand that, or at least for me, for us in the European Union, that doesn't necessarily have to mean instability, or definitely not long-term instability. And of course, if we're looking for something stable and safe for a few moments, many can achieve that. But the big question is, who can achieve long-term stability? And in other words, who can actually develop what it takes in order to absorb shocks in such a way that you can actually work long-term. Mm-hmm. And allow me to illustrate that with the example of the European Union, not because I like it so much, which I do, but because I think it's also relevant for the Kurdistan region of Iraq. And please, when I refer to these, try to think of an analogy which I will not express plainly myself. I would just leave it a bit to the imagination of everyone, because it's very relevant for Kurdistan as well, given its position within Iraq and in the broader region. So, of course, I think it's a common position that the European Union was forged as a response to crisis. It was forged, and it started at the moment when volatility was very high after the Second World War, and not barely had the ink dried on the Paris Treaty in 1951, when in 1954 we reached our first institutional crisis, which was the failure of our common defense policy. And then in 1964 we had the empty chair crisis, as it's called. And we've learned from that you need to put legitimacy behind and acceptability behind the institutions that you're creating. And then later on, in the 70s, we all faced the oil crisis shocks. And in a way, that taught us something that we are implementing even today. And this gives me the opportunity to debunk an element which I've heard earlier, that the European Union did not navigate, or it did not accomplish its energy transition. Which was weird for me to hear, because let me say it now, we have 50% of our energy coming from renewables. We've added 200 gigawatts of power, photovoltaics and wind just between 21 and 24, if I'm not mistaken, which pushed us up. We still have our climate objectives, and speaking of strategy, which is something that we've also heard earlier, yes, strategies are hard to build in a volatile environment, but that doesn't mean we cannot set strategic objectives, and we have those. You can check them. It's very clear where we want to be in 2050. I remember Commissioner Cañete telling us in 2016, trust me, he said, no one trusted him at the time, but now we're starting to probably. In 2050, we will be 100% renewable. And it would be thanks to the technology. So that's another example of how you navigate crisis. Another crisis, of course, the COVID-19 crisis, which challenged our solidarity. We all of a sudden started seeing reactions at a national level, and we very easily understood that that cannot be done. And what it taught us then was that even if there's a crisis, you can always invent common recovery mechanisms, and that's what we developed then. We had then the crisis, the economic and fiscal crisis, financial crisis, 2008, 2012. What it taught us is if you're going to build an architecture, take it until the end, do the whole job. So that's when we invented or when we developed a monitoring mechanism, and we enhanced our institutional framework. Why am I saying? And today, after 75 years, we're still struggling, of course. We are in a moment when we're struggling with the effects of Ukraine war, the war in Ukraine by Russia, and of course the war in Iran affects us as well. But we are here. We learn from it every day. We build our institutions stronger, and we are still here together and with our partners, and look forward to a future, even if we have a disinformation war going on right now inside. What tells us this is the following, that there's a major difference between short-term stability and, mind you, there are many places in this world that have temporary stability. It has to be sustainable, and in order for it to be sustainable, you need strong governance. And if there's one thing that I want to make a point about is strong governance, and that's exactly what we heard this morning from His Excellency, the Deputy Prime Minister. Governance matters, and I think that for the Kurdistan region, the importance of that is that because it helps transform this place not into an El Dorado where people would come because there's a huge opportunity to make some money, hit and run. No, but because this is a place for the long term where you can come and you can make sure you can build something here sustainable on the long run. And that's why we care about the Kurdistan region. We see the advantages of the region being the following. There's a certain like-mindedness. There's a common understanding of why governance is so important, and there's a willingness to do it. But very importantly, it has a type of political specificity which ensures long-term planning, long-term thinking. And if the institutions are strong, with the given political setup here, you can actually build on the long term. That's the type of interventions that we have. I know the time is short, but if I have time, I'd be happy to say some very concrete things that we do, both for the economic environment, but also for governance. But the reason why we do it is because we want a strong partner here.
Thank you. Thank you. Jan, I would like you to talk about the importance and impact of education for societies and how education would help societies to stay resilient. And interestingly, in Kurdistan, we use the word parwarda for education, which means nurturing, raising. It's more than learning, actually. So this shows that we care about education, but perhaps we need to learn more from your excellent education. Could you please tell us a little bit about your role in education?
Thank you, Dr. Peshawa, and thank you for organizing this great event, and thank you for Kakuba to organize all this setup and the Delphi forum. Just to come back to what both Radu and Andrew said, resilience is about the ability to build stability and absorbing shocks. So it means strong institutions, I would say ability to valorize resources, natural or built resources, and show resilience of the different actors in society, be it the private sector or the institutions themselves. And that's what we had when we organized some business events. People who were willing to invest here needed to see these elements of strong institutional capacity, stability in the organizational setup, and also the idea that human capital has been invested in, and the Deputy Prime Minister spoke about human capital. As far as I am concerned, I've seen here since 3 years a great deal of universities with very high-level teachings and students who are able to valorize their expertise on the global stage in international companies. And this starts from the beginning. Mm-hmm. This starts from school. And the kind of model that we can try to invest in and improve is a very open model of schools, open to international education, open to, and that leads to the ability for the students to go abroad, to go back also with expertise and to be able to invest in areas like in Raparin, where we, well, Andrew said, talked about the development agency. That's clearly the kind of things that we can contribute to build. We have worked on that, especially with the 2 French schools which are present in Erbil and Slemani, and we have embarked on this journey to make our French schools international French schools, so meaning opening widely the curricula to the ability to foster critical thinking, to provide basic education, but very high-level education, and also openings to language. So when you go into a French school, for instance, you learn French, but you have 40% of your teachings which are in English. You can, you of course learn Arabic and Kurdish because it is a basis of citizenship in the Iraqi Kurdistan. So that's the way we are trying to build on these very strong tools that we have, and then we can support the students who will be studying abroad and bringing back to Kurdistan the know-how, the expertise that they have been able to acquire both in universities in the Gulf or all over the world, but especially in France. I was this morning in the French school in Slemani, the international French school, Daniel Mitterrand of Slemani, and there were 6 students finishing their studies. All 6 wants to go and study in France.
Wow.
So they will be having a very prominent background, university experience, ability to work in international companies, to bring international companies here. But they will also represent, and I will end with this, they will be the human representation of the links that the French people and the Kurdish people do enjoy all together. And that's a great achievement for us.
Of course, yes, that's amazing. Andrew, on education, I think UK still is seen as a top destination for students from Kurdistan region to go and study and come back. What's your take on the role of the UK in terms of education and that relations?
2 points. I agree with what Jan was saying, and what you, Dr. Pesha, are a very good example, to be honest, of this long, continuous stream of people that have come from the Kurdistan region, studied in the UK, and brought those skills back. That's really important. That's why we continue to do that ourselves as part of our achieving schemes, sending people for fully funded masters. I think my second point is to perhaps ask the question of whether that is overplayed in importance. I think it's definitely part of the mix, but actually primary education, secondary education is really important. Here, I meet too many people, I think, here for whom the assumption is that you go and do a degree, then possibly a master's, and then hopefully you get a public sector job. And I guess I would want to challenge that. I was talking at lunch with some of my colleagues about the difference in my consulate between the first jobs of the UK-based people there. So I, for instance, my first job at age 17 was pulling pints behind a bar in London. When I speak to my kind of colleagues from the Kurdistan region, none of them can say that. They weren't working in kitchens, they weren't waiting tables. What did that teach me? It taught me about business, it taught me about people. And so I think my challenge is that this region should think about education in a different way, in addition to the good things that are happening.
Nice. Wow. I totally agree with you. I think we should change this mentality regarding jobs and first jobs. One of the big pillars of good governance, of course, is the rule of law. And I know the EU has done a lot in this regard through the EU itself and the EU advisory mission in Baghdad. Radu, could you please tell us a little bit more about your role in terms of helping us to have, to reach good governance, hopefully one day?
Absolutely, thank you. Thank you. Well, to contribute to the good governance, because this
Yeah.
is never, I suppose, never an objective which you can say reached, you know, and checked. You have to strive for that constantly, and that's what we see in the EU as well. But yes, thank you for that question. Absolutely, I think it's very easy to speak from my position, being a representative of the EU, because you always have an example, a very clear example to give. You can speak about principles, you can say it would be nice to do that and that and that, but then you actually have a project in which you're trying to contribute precisely to that. And indeed, I think we look at it two ways in order to support long-term economic development and stability. First, you put the bases, which are strong governance, and then you come with very specific sectorial projects. And I can only add to what Andrew and Jan said here. I would also speak about TVET, the technical and vocational training, which is also a very important aspect and where we have a very specific project. But on governance, I think we try to support in a three-way approach. Mm-hmm. We have an institutional presence here in Kurdistan, in Iraq, of course, but in Kurdistan as well. It's the EU office, of course, where we try to keep close and keep in touch. We have the ECHO office, which is the humanitarian aid office, and we have which also contributes to a certain extent to the governance objectives. But we also have the EU advisory mission, which is our common security and defense policy. We have, even in Erbil, for policemen, for the colleagues are policemen from different European member states, and what they do is they offer advice and contribute to the security sector reform on very specific topics, such as, for instance, crime, including financial crime, anti-drug, anti-trafficking of cultural heritage, even so, everything that contributes also to a good governance. But we also do it through projects, and that's the other way in which we act. And we have a number of projects. I have a selection which I really want to mention. One of them is rather new, and I will refer to, we have one, for instance, even on anti-corruption, but I want to refer to the ones where we support the civil society. Mm-hmm. Because this is maybe one of the first discussions that I had with His Excellency when I arrived, the importance of actually having a place where people can speak up and say their mind and be free. So it's within the concept of freedom of expression, which is so important for us. And one of them is called Saltna, Strengthening Our Unity Through Networking and Advocacy. It's a project where we help civil society organizations to have a better understanding of how to act and to impact policy making and decision making processes. We have another one, Tatawir it's called. I think some of these we implement with development agencies of our member states, Germany, Italy, I know for sure, France, of course. As in Tatawir, we offer training, coaching, and knowledge for internal management and strategic planning within civil society organizations. And then we have, for instance, one which refers to democracy and transparency, empowering civic engagement and media freedom. And we look a little bit into how civil society organizations can help understand electoral processes.
Yeah. Our time is officially and technically over, but I'll ask one more question, Jan. And it's the business ties that we have between France and the Kurdistan region. Could you please tell us briefly the business relationship that we have at the moment in French presence here in Kurdistan?
We have quite an extensive business relations, I would say. That we are following three main patterns. We have, of course, commercial trades with brands which are imported here. Many French brands are imported and shops are represented. You can find Petit Bateau in malls. You can find French champagne or whatever products you may look for. We have also some direct investments which have been made, and a brand like Carrefour, which is second or third.
My favorite.
Well, has been investing here and taken Kurdistan as a base to invest also all over Iraq, which is quite an interesting model to have a look at. And there are also other kinds of models to follow, which are providing factories directly with lines of productions which are sold. We have one in a brick factory, for instance, in Chamchamal. We have several other brands which are helping the private sector here to build state-of-the-art factories. So it's in all sectors: industry, agriculture, agro-food industry, like with Danone. So we are trying to diversify these projects. We are focusing a lot on water management sector, especially given the scarcity of the resources, but also the availability, the scarcity of the resources on the global Iraqi market, but also the availability of the resource here in Kurdistan. So we are implementing a pilot project to monitor the quality and the quantity of water all over Kurdistan. We have the project to expand it at the federal level in order to provide more predictability to the management of these water resources. What is at stake right now is that after these episodes of war, the image of the entire region could be seen as a risky investment. So we will, of course, redouble our efforts together with the Kurdistan regional government to make sure that this image is counterbalanced with the kind of resilience assets that are proven here, meaning very high quality labor market, very high quality infrastructures, and investment laws which are protective of the international investors. That will require a great deal of effort, which we're very keen on doing.
Thank you. Thank you. On the rule of law part, very briefly, I know we don't have any time left, but I just want to mention the UK's role as well, because in the past the UK has done amazing training program as part of the judicial development training programs for the judges and for the those who work in the investigative bodies in Kurdistan. So I hope everybody will continue helping the Kurdistan region so that we can stay resilient and even more. Thank you very much for your comments, for your observations, for your remarks. I found them really, really useful and amazing. And thanks for your patience. Thank you.